Well, thank you everybody for coming. We'll get started. Last night we started about quarter after, and we almost took up the whole hour just on the discussion. So, obviously, as you know, we're here to discuss the City Hall project. The footnote I would give you is that the Common Council has worked with the ad hoc committee for City Hall on developing the exteriors, the layouts. All of the work has been done to this date. Not yet to get to a final decision, but to bring the public in now to weigh in, see if we're on the right track. This is something you can get behind. I'll introduce Corey Scheidler from Cedar Corporation. He is our consultant. You're in the camera. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We've got a chair there though. If you could sit down, that'd be great. So, thank you.
We do have a sign-in sheet on the front counter by Becky. If you just sign in before you leave, and then there's also a comment sheet. So if you do have any comments, commentary, go ahead and fill one of those out, leave it here, take it home, bring it back. That would be great. There's also some brochures up there as well if you'd like. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this building, but it was built in the early 1900s as a city hall and fire station. The building construction is primarily masonry with some wood flooring systems and structural components within the building. Building of this sort is typically about a 75 to 100 year life expectancy, and being was built in the early 1900s, we are there today. Now the building is in good condition, as well as the mall building, which is the other building we're looking at saving. These types of building with a little bit of work can be brought into today's standards and provide a useful life for another 75 to 100 years. So, the city started out back in 2008 looking at the project, and they decided they had a need. They hired another consultant to look at the needs of the municipality and city hall and police, and they actually looked at remodeling this building as well as the former middle school and another new site, building a new building at a new site. They went through those options. Nothing was finally determined. So what they did is they came back in 2011, hired Cedar Corporation. We came in, looked at the needs of the community, the city hall, police, and we went through a series of interviews with a number of different people. I think I spent about 2 days here, all day for the most part, interviewing people, discussing the needs of the community, the city, the police, and the other department heads and staff. We then went back and we looked at the square footage that was going to be required, and it was determined that this building, along with a combination of the taxidermy or mall building, perhaps could work for this project. Came up with a few different options, and based on the needs, it was determined that we needed to have all three buildings, and that's what we have prepared here for you this afternoon. So a couple of big items that were lacking in the existing city hall and the police department are security, space, and storage. So when you walk in, a lot of city halls will have a separation between the staff and the people coming in, just as a security measure. And Becky's here working this afternoon, and if you were to look over the counter, you can see everything she's working on. And if it's your private business, you don't want somebody else coming in and looking at that. So that's a huge issue. Storage is another item. There's very limited storage. A lot of the records, I believe, are downstairs, upstairs. Perhaps is it the water department that's somewhere at?
Treatment plant.
Treatment plant, there we go. So, kind of got records all over it. If they need to go find something, it's a task to go get those records. So, we also did is when we were looking at the buildings, is we came in with our environmental specialist and our structural engineer to make certain that the buildings are adequate for renovation. Buildings are in good condition. There's limited amounts of hazardous materials that would be expected for this type of building of that age. So, no concerns there. Some of the things that were talked about through the ad hoc committee meetings, council meetings, we're keeping the building downtown. Everyone did like the idea of keeping City Hall downtown. Also introducing a community center to the City Hall building or municipal building. Right now the senior meals are over at the church. They were at the VFW. All the council meetings are being held for the most part, I think, are being held at the library. So if Patrick or Becky would need to bring anything to a council meeting, they gotta make sure they bring it from here because they don't have the luxury of going back into the office and grabbing it. A lot of communities I work in, the clerk or the administrator is constantly running back to the office to grab a record or something that a board member may need, make a copy for somebody. So it is an inconvenience to be over at the library. So, a couple other things that we were looking at was improving access and parking. The new building or proposed layout would have access from the rear of the building as well as the front. So staff and visitors would be able to park at the rear of the building or at the front and have the same access throughout the building. We're also looking at trying to enhance the outdoor area. Right now, there's no benches, bike racks, or anything of that nature. So if you look at the front renderings we have down there, you'll see that the building in the middle, the middle third is actually set back a little bit. We put a couple park benches in there as well as bike racks. You can also see that in the floor plan, how we set that back. In addition to providing that park bench space or green space and enhancing the exterior, it also separates the new building from the old building. Part of doing that is keeping the historical nature of our existing buildings that we have here. They've been around for a long time, they're in good condition, and we want to make sure that we take care of that heritage for the community. Along with the project, we would actually be looking at improving the mechanical, electrical, plumbing system. So basically what we'd be doing is just salvaging the shell of these buildings and building a new building with the old shell. So you'll have a building that'll last in that 75-year range with proper maintenance. And I make sure I explain the proper maintenance. A lot of people don't maintain their buildings. So, as we went through the project, we added in a community center, which isn't here right now, and then we also added in the council chambers, as I had mentioned. So, as far as the project cost, the last estimate was done in about 2011. The cost at that time was 1.8 to 2 million. You know, those are a couple years old now. So as we move forward through the project, we'll be evaluating that cost and working with the council to maintain a budget that'll be set for the project. So. The next steps in the project will be dependent on the feedback from the public informational meetings, and then we'll be moving forward after that.
At the end, yeah.
That'll answer any questions.
Using the floor plan as your kind of to show, illustrate the recording,
Sure.
is there any really big changes outside of the community center and the council chambers? Is it mostly just opening up, having enough office floor space to have enough desks for the staff? Or are there any other big changes?
Well, the city hall portion of the building itself, a lot of the square footage will remain the same. It's just how it's organized. Right now, if you look at this space, a lot of it is just a common corridor or lobby space. So what we're doing is we're actually going to be separating that from the main corridor. So we would have the lobby, a smaller lobby that'll separate the public from the staff. The center portion of the building, which would be the new part or where the taxidermy building is, would essentially be all the public spaces, the green space, and that'll contain the stairways, the elevators, restrooms, and the main lobby that you'll be able to enter. And that way, City Hall can be shut down, police can be shut down, and you can still gain access to the community center. The community center is actually going to be in the mall building, and right now we're proposing to have a separate access door, so you can come in and out of that space as you please from the outside, but you would still have access to the restrooms within the building. So basically, the whole mall building essentially would be proposed for the community center on the lower level. The upper level of that would be for the council chambers and also search space for a future conference room, perhaps the historical society, or if there was municipal court, why there was a council meeting or another meeting, we could use that space as well. The upstairs of the city hall building will remain to be police. However, it will be reconfigured and there will be a significant amount more space for the police department. Yes, and the addition of a garage at the rear of the building, which you can see here as well.
I'll just make a quick comment. If you have not been upstairs since the library moved from upstairs to its new location, please take the officer up on the offer to take you upstairs and show it to you. I think you need to see it to understand when they're talking about space and security, because the upstairs is, well, I shudder, is the best way to put it.
Yeah, we've got a small enough group too, we probably just run one run right upstairs. Take a look at that when we're done here, if there's no more. Or maybe we do the tour real quick and then come back and gather again.
Some of the things as you walk around, just note the lack of storage space, separation between the public and the staff. As you're walking through the police department, just note the security and lack, or I should say lack of security. Limited evidence space, limited space for evidence storage or prep. You know, a good example of what they have here versus a newer modern facility would be when they have evidence come in. They're using different chemicals and different procedures to prep that evidence and store that evidence. Well, they don't have the proper facilities here, and not only is it harmful to the staff, or could be potentially harmful to the staff, it could be potentially harmful to the evidence, which could sacrifice a case for them as well.
Do you wanna take a tour upstairs? I can kinda elaborate a little bit, I guess.
Yes, please.
We're looking around.
Make sure you all grab a cookie on the way too.
Ally can pass out.